Deanna Radulescu has the label-free podcast. No labels. Very fascinating story with Deanna. She traumatic upbringing there in the Chicagoland area. She was sex trafficked, abusive parents. Relationships were horrible and abusive. She entered some businesses with her husband, and eventually the bad economy hit. They lost everything. They brought it back up. They had to borrow money, and he died, and whole court battle. The children didn't get it. It was just trauma after trauma. But she fought back, and from those businesses, she eventually did her own in fashion and came back. And just an incredible story about how, the depths of despair and trauma were there, but she turned it around. She tells others about it in her podcast and what she does. Her life is an open book. It's very inspiring, and it's a great conversation with Deanna. I know you're going to enjoy it. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business? And it lasted over 25 years. Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Oh my goodness, Deanna Radulescu, thank you so much for your time today. I'm very, very excited to talk to you. How does what you wear affect your mood and attitude?
Ooh, you're coming out of the gate swinging, huh?
Let's do
Well,
it.
thanks for having me, Joey. I'm a big fashionista, so
Yeah.
for me, what I wear, I always want to feel empowered. I want to feel beautiful. I also want to feel sexy. So, I'm very much into dressing to impress, and so I'm always put together usually for no matter what, even if it's at the gym, I'm matching. It just sets the tone for my mood and just for how I want to take on the day.
I find in businesses, when I was younger, we went to kind of this casual Friday, and you wore jeans, and eventually it kind of spread out to the rest of the week. And
Yeah.
it's just something about when you have a tie on and a jacket, or business attire. You just kind of view things just a little bit differently in the office. It's
Yeah.
odd.
Yeah. I've worked in a couple of places where the jeans, people could wear jeans all week long. I mean, they had to look business
Right.
casual, but jeans were acceptable. I personally never really adopted that mentality. I maybe jeans once a week, but I was always like, slacks, a nice dress, skirt, something more business attire. So not so
Mm.
casual.
Yeah, and of course, now we're working home a lot, so that's really not an issue at all. But I mean, I travel a lot, and I just the sweatpants in public, at airports and things, and the slippers being worn. I don't mean to be a stuffy prude person. I'm not that at all. But I don't know. I just kind of have a different view of that. I guess it's casual first these days.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on what kind of sweatpants are they wearing? Are they wearing Louis
Mm,
Vuitton, Gucci, or are they wearing like
uh,
Kmart? I'm kidding. I
right.
guess it's all about what people are comfortable in. The airport's always an interesting place to people watch. I mean, even when I fly, I want to be comfortable, but I also want to look put together. So I don't get sometimes how these people just roll out of bed and roll into the airport. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's not a lot of effort, but nonetheless, it's just I have a particular style, as do you, and uh, that should be just fine. What a fascinating story, Deanna, where um, so much trauma, and I want to come back to fashion because you lit right up, but I think it's important for me and those listening to understand your road there. Like 2008, yeah, the business crashed. He lost
Mhm.
around $10 million, but before that, there was abuse, there was sex trafficking, there was so much trauma.
Yeah.
What do you want to let me and those listening know?
I'm an open book. I mean, what I tell people at this point, I really don't have any more skeletons in the closet.
Mm,
Everything that I've been through is out there now for the world to listen, whoever is listening. Um, I have no more shame around it. Unfortunately, I am a product of a broken home. My
mm.
father left when I was 15. He was a deadbeat dad. I'm the oldest of five. Being the oldest, my mom and I got the brunt of the abuse, and unfortunately I repeated that pattern, made some bad choices, got introduced to some things that weren't the best for me. I mean, luckily I have a fighting spirit, right? My mom always says that I'm her gladiator, and I probably have some skills that I was born with that other people in my situation may not have. And I was able to get out of it, pretty much unscathed. I did do a lot of drugs during that time. I did have the boyfriend I had was very abusive. He had abducted me one time. He had broken into my house. He stabbed me in the arm with a knife. Like, there was a lot of crazy things. He had even like beat me up so bad, like we had to get a plastic surgeon for my face. So it was life is interesting. It is the journey for sure. And I think that when you experience trauma, you have a choice on how you want your life to look like, how you want your life to look, coming out of the trauma. I mean, it's a lifetime of healing after that, right? I mean, I think we're all on our own journey of healing in some way or another, but some of us more than others. And I've chosen to not allow that to hold me back,
Mm.
um hence not label me to prevent me from stepping into my true purpose and my true power.
When you're the abused in the abused relationship like that, what should people do? What should people know? Do you have to hit rock bottom? Were there signs? What's your advice to them?
So, um people can talk to you till you're blue in the face, right? Until they're blue in the face. They can tell you got to go. Like, don't you see the red flags? They can say all these things to you over and over again. And deep down, you know it, right? But it really it's ultimately the person that's in that situation. It's their decision, like when they're going to leave, if they're going to leave, and to really gather up the courage to leave that situation. Um, Anybody that is in an abusive situation knows deep down that it's not right for them, but perhaps they're too scared to leave because they don't feel worthy. They've been doing it for so long, they feel ashamed, and they think that, oh, no one is going to love me because I've put up for this for so long. So it's almost to a point where they are abusing themselves on the inside because of
Mm.
the person that's abusing them on the outside.
Wow. I know people in this similar situation. In yours, I believe there weren't any children involved, so
No,
it
there was
wasn't as difficult because once
no.
there's children, then there's a big kind of tie down there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me personally, if I had kids, I probably would have killed them.
Uh,
I mean, because I
right.
would be so protective of my children that I wouldn't want them to think that that was okay. Because I just because it's okay for me doesn't mean that it's okay for innocent children that you bring into this world. Because ultimately, what you do is going to affect them. So if you're a kid, so for me, prime example, my mother was with my father and she was getting abused by him, and then I'm getting in the middle of it because I'm the oldest, and I thought so. I continued that pattern moving forward,
Wow.
and I think that parents really need to be responsible for what they show their children to be acceptable. I mean, I think that's a whole. I mean, our society is not the best right now, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done at the foundational level that really helps. Let's instill in our children of tomorrow that they are worthy, that abuse is not acceptable, to be loving towards others. The cyberbullying that's out of control, that cyberbullying is coming from something that's happening at home, right? So something's happening at home that's making that child angry to lash out to someone else. And so what's happening there? Like, how do we fix that? Right? I mean, it's all coming from somewhere. It starts somewhere that continues for generations and generations. I mean, when are we going to try to stop it?
Yeah, very true. And then you got involved with the business as well, your husband's
When
business.
Yes, oh yeah. So I was with my late husband for almost 17 years. We've dated at first, off and on, and then we got serious. And his first business, had did a lot of traveling with him, did a lot of trade shows. And when the economy crashed in 2008, pretty much lost almost everything. We restarted
Yeah.
right away, and ended up paying almost everybody back that had lost money with that first business.
Wow.
And it was very difficult. It was a very tough road, because at that time you couldn't get loans from banks, especially after the one bank pulled the loan. And here we are, our first year with the new business, we did 4 million in sales. That's huge, your first year. So I mean, we did a lot of we were juggling a lot of stuff at that time, and we grew it to, before he passed, we had quadrupled the size of or more than that, the size of the company within a very short amount of time. And
Mm.
then that year before he passed, I had gotten my first $20 million contract, and so I doubled the size of the business and with one contract in 1 year. So um, I was very heavily involved in the businesses. We had the main business, which was remanufacturing. It was automotive, not my favorite. No, I was not passionate about it at all. That was his thing. Then we had our installation arm, where we did locally install the remanufactured transmissions, and then we had three real estate companies.
Yeah, and you insisted after that kind of crash that you be part of the business, and
Yes.
you talk about being up 3 o'clock in the morning and having an argument, and then later he came to find out and said, you were right. You have the acumen, the
Yeah,
stuff to do
where did
this.
you hear it? You must have listened to an episode or something.
A little birdie told me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, when we were engaged at that time, and I was just like, if you're starting over, I'm gonna be there from the beginning. And we fought until like 3 o'clock in the morning, and finally he's like, okay. And so I said, I'll just come and I'll just be quiet. And so I sat at the round table with all his key people from the previous business, and I just sat there quiet, listening to things. And I have a natural sense for business. I was born with that. I mean, I took it in college, but I have a natural sense for it. And so, as we started working together and I started, getting very involved, he told me that he had underestimated me. And I'm like, yeah, I know you did.
Yeah, very much. And you say as a youth, you mowed lawns, you helped people set up parties. And so you just kind of had this instinct in you and you moved it for the rest of your life.
Yeah, no, he told me, he always told people, and he told me he's like, my wife's the driver of the business, because I was always driving things forward. I think there was only one time that I kind of like, we had been traveling so much, trade show after trade show after trade show, and I just kind of like the one time we had so many back to back trips. It was the only time that I just said I can't do it. I like sat on the
Mm.
stairs. I'm like, I physically just can't go on another trip. It was only one time in those 10 years. No, well, yeah, 10 years that I had said no. I got to take a break. So
Life on the road can be demanding. Your diet changes. You can't exercise. It's just it's
yeah,
so difficult. You're at different hotels. You forget what city you're in. You don't even know the
yeah,
weather because you're in these convention halls.
yeah,
And the parties are great and everything, but it takes its toll. And the tragedy, of course, in 2016 when he passes, you were told that you were in the will. You were told that,
yeah.
and you didn't get along with the children, and it ended up just being a terrible, terrible kind of court battle for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, it was not fun. I had three attorneys to help me fight that. I mean, it was like what you see in the movies is what I experienced. It was not
Mm.
a good time in my life, but I was still a fighter. My friends were like, "How are you not sitting in the corner rocking back and forth?" I'm like, "What else am I going to do?" When you watch your husband lose his battle with life, you really look at things differently. For me to be healthy and just to be alive, and to I knew he wasn't going to make it. That's one thing that I tell. No, I was the closest to him, right? I was the one administering dialysis. I'm the one. even though he was sick, traveling with him, pushing him in a wheel chair to the gate, and carrying the dialysis machine. Like, I was everything was on me at that time, and I
Wow.
he would just cry at night like, I can't do it anymore. I just want to give up. And I had to sit there and be like, no, you're gonna do it, and try to be that source of positivity for him. And I just knew he had given up. He wasn't going to make it.
It's uh it's very difficult position, and
Yeah.
it ended up making you stronger though, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Unfortunately, I got involved with another abusive boyfriend right after he
Yeah.
passed. And then, it took me a while to get rid of him. And then the dust settled with all the court stuff. But I took some time just to be with myself, like, just be alone, sit in silence, and really just kind of think about the trajectory of my life, everything that I had went through, just the ins and outs of everything. And I just decided that, I want to be at peace. I want to be happy, because people think, oh, this doesn't make me happy, that doesn't make me happy. Well, really, nothing can make you happy. It's what happens from within.
Hmm.
And it took me, 40 years to figure that out. But, and still I'm hearing people around me like, oh, he's not making me happy. And I'm just like, well, he can't make you happy. When I talk to my girlfriends, it's just like, that is a very an enlightening moment when you realize that you have to decide, inside, no matter what is going on around you, that you're going to be grateful, and you're going to be joyful, and find that peace that makes you truly happy. And it has been despite the circumstances, it's been a beautiful thing to get to that place.
Yeah, ultimately it's up to you. And Dean, I also want to mention that, before that incident with your husband, I mean, you were in 10,000, 20,000 foot home. You had a Ferrari, you had a
Yeah,
motorcycle. I mean, it was
had all the
very, yeah, you're in, a gated community. I mean, it was, and then you had to leave with nothing that like they didn't even want to give you your clothes and everything.
yeah.
So, I mean, I want to make sure that we understand what position you were in and how you had to turn that around.
Yeah, no, it was pretty rough. I mean, even today, I'm just kind of like, you have a certain status in life, and most people will probably never get there. And to reach that status in life, was, is was an accomplishment all in itself. But to have lost the titles and all that stuff, that was hard to wrap my head around. When I
Mm,
had to go back to work for someone, I had a hard time, like,
right.
not being in that boss mode, right? You go from being vice president, pretty much running the company, to having to report to someone, is a big shift in like your work headspace, I guess you would say. I don't know, is that the right? I don't know. But I
Well,
think you
just
understand what I'm trying to say.
yeah, yeah. Plus, it's just humbling. Right?
Very,
Yeah, it's
very.
humbling. Yeah, because you're used to kinda calling the shots, but in some respect, it must have been actually a little bit more relaxing that you're not responsible for the entire organization and you can kinda do what you need to do?
Um
No?
I don't feel like this anymore, but it was really it really was upsetting that I invested so much of my life into a business to grow it and to lose it all.
Mm.
It was blood, sweat, and tears. Like, we were side by side. And I mean, I'd used my mom had put up her house to help finance us for
Wow.
to keep our big building. We had many people around us, but a lot of people from my side that helped us. And to have a loss that at the end, when I had
Mm.
put so much of my time in my life into it, was very upsetting. I'm okay now, but it was just like, man, like, it almost, you almost have trust issues. Like, well, I don't want to invest my time into something if
Right.
it's not going, if I don't know at the end it's going to be mine.
Yeah, but then in 2017, Deanna Marie label.
Yeah. Yeah.
What talk to me about that and the inspiration there.
Well, so I've always been into fashion. I
Yeah.
used to dress up in my grandma's clothes and her hats and her heels. My mom always dresses, to the nines. And so I've always had women around me that impressed me that in that way. And so I've always loved clothes. I used to go garage sale shopping when I was 13, and like buy like these beautiful dresses, these I mean, I think I would say that they're like what's the word I'm looking for? Just very like nice old dresses, Vintage, that's the word I'm looking for,
Ah,
vintage
vintage.
dresses. I'd wear them to high school. I was probably the weirdest girl that went to high school
Ah,
'cause I'm dressing up in these elaborate clothes, but I just loved it. When I would cut grass and babysit, and I'd save my money, and I would go ride my bike up to the store and buy nice clothes. So always into fashion. I always sewed when I was in high school. I always made a lot of my own clothes. So I had told my husband, I want to get into fashion. I want to get into fashion. I'm not going to be in this automotive industry forever. And he's like, don't worry, don't worry. When we get this business off the ground, I'll be your, he said, I'll be your BITCH. And I was just like, okay, that's great. And of course, that never happened. We were always going on to the next bigger thing. And so when he passed, I had actually found a consulting company out of Soho, New York. Hindsight, I probably would have done a little bit more research, but I was just so gung ho and still reeling from him passing and my life getting together, that I was just like, I just gonna do it. I'm gonna be successful. I'm gonna be the next Chanel. Like
mm,
that was what was in my head, and thinking it was going to be, not easy, but I was thinking like, yeah, I got this. I got a great vision. I mean, I got a great brand. And, I ended up getting involved with this consulting firm. They were two lesbian ladies that owned it. I talked big game. They took me through the whole process, which I learned a lot, but I could have saved myself a lot of money, because at the end of the day, when I did contract them to do my first production run, the prices that they quoted me turned out to be double or triple. I don't even remember what it was. And I had did a Kickstarter that people supported my Kickstarter, raised over $5,000. So I had to fill these orders, right? My first production run. So I had to break my relationship with them, because how can I fill these orders when it's three times the price that you quoted
mm,
me? And then I had to source everything here locally in the Chicagoland area, which was like I was like a chicken with its head cut off, running around trying to figure out all these resources. But it did teach me some very valuable lessons in that whole process. And fashion is a tricky animal.
mm,
If you get into it, I didn't know how to do the pattern making. I wasn't gonna. Obviously, I'm not gonna be producing all these pieces, and so like you're gonna be more successful at it if you can do all the steps instead of like sourcing it out everywhere. And
mm,
it was a lot of work. I loved it. I did 3 collections. I said after my third collection, if it doesn't take off, I'm gonna cut my losses, and that's it. And so I did that. It was a great experience. If I was to get into it again, I'd do things differently for sure.
knowing that. Yeah, and so one of the big shows, you were in Rhode Island, you were in
Yeah,
Chicago there, the Cadillac,
yeah, I was a
against the
finalist.
Human
Yeah,
Trafficking. It's just, very, very impressive. I know nothing about the industry, but it seems very kind of closed to me
yes,
from an outside, like, they don't want every once in a while, a new designer will come, but it's pretty much the old guard. Is that
yeah.
inaccurate?
Yeah, I just went to a networking event here in the Chicagoland area, and it was for their fashion panelists, people that were in the fashion industry. And they said the same thing. And it was just like, that was my experience. Because when I did the show in Rhode Island on the runway, I was on the local news there. It was a lot of fun. When we went to the after party, the top designers all like snubbed all of us other
Wow.
ones. And they went off to sit in their own corner. It was like they didn't even know who we were. But during the show, we were all best friends and buddies. But when the after party, they all like kind
Interesting.
of got together. The guy from the Globe, all these reporters, like they snubbed us and walked off. It was very bizarre. I was like, that's pretty shitty or like, kind of crappy. Sorry, didn't mean to
Yeah.
swear.
No, you can swear all you want. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Before you spelled out bitch. Yeah. You could, yeah,
Yeah.
say shitty out, whatever you like. Yeah. It's very interesting. I know very little about fashion, and you're completely out now. Another thing that surprised me about you is your relationship to martial arts.
Yeah, I'm a
Talk
second
to me
degree
about
black
that.
belt.
Yeah.
So when I was in the human trafficking era of my life, and I was doing drugs, part of me trying to get out of that lifestyle was wanting to do something good for myself. And so I got into martial arts to kind of counteract some of that stuff that was going on, and just to discipline myself, and which helped immensely and got me out of it. And after several years, of course, my sensei was an incredible man, like just very thoughtful, very caring towards me, and that's something I hadn't had because my father wasn't in the picture, and so he played a great role in me, just kind of helping me build my self worth up, if that makes sense. And when you I was cocky at first. I'm not gonna lie. I used to try to get into fights. After I learned something. This is just
Mm,
this cocky. I'm a badass. Like I'm into like just that whole mentality I had back then was so different. But then as you start getting more skilled in martial arts and really being aware of what you're capable of, you become more reserved and more calm.
right.
And that was one thing that I really loved about martial arts, is like that kind of helped me just kind of get into a different place, and make me aware of what I was capable of physically, because I studied for 20 years. My late husband and I used to do martial arts together. We got our two black belts together. And so, I continued that on with him. It was a great thing that we did together. And I love it. And, if I had time to get it to do it now, I would still be in it and, kicking some butt.
Yeah. It's amazing how the deeper you get into it, the less violent you become.
Yes. Very interesting. And so if I ever am blessed to have children, I would definitely put them in to martial arts.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm just dipping my toe in it now, and I just find it to be so yeah, just so kind of evening and calming, and
Yeah.
and there's frustration, of course, because you're not doing things the way you can, and you see others, but that's all part of the building blocks. So you find an essay that says start a podcast for $100.
Yeah. Well, we all know that if you as a podcaster, it costs more than $100.
Sure, but you do a great job with it.
Yes, for sure. Well, yeah. So after the fashion thing, I ended my fashion career with a big charity event here in the Chicagoland area against human trafficking. That was my last collection. It was a huge event, huge success here. I mean, just magnificent. It took me 8 months to create, and it's very proud of that.
Wow.
I would definitely do it again in a heartbeat if I could. So I was like, what's next? Being the type A person that I am, I always have to have something going on, even though I'm working a corporate job, but that's like, corporate job doesn't really fulfill me. It's just a job.
Mm,
And I got that article. I was talking to my best friend. I'm just like, I'm gonna start a podcast. I don't know who the fuck I think I am, but and this is, I told her my idea. Like, I'm tired of these labels. I'm tired of labels I've been carrying all these years. I'm tired of labels people put on me, from being a widow, like you can't date, just all these things. And, um, we came up with label free, to live your best life, live label free. And, it's become, started out as a hobby, and I have graduated into, I'm podcasting full time. It's what I do. I'm also the head coach and founding partner of the Female Podcasters Network.
so
And I love the community. Those that stick with it, it is a commitment to do this. If you're either in it or you're not.
right.
So when I talk to my clients and they're doing it, I said, you have to fully commit to it if you want to be successful. You got to be consistent, and you have to be very crystal clear on what your message is.
Yeah, and that's what you do, and you do a great job of interviewing people, and sometimes you have them right there sitting next to you, and
Yeah.
other times,
Sometimes,
yeah,
yeah.
you're doing that as well. And how long have you been doing it now?
3 years.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah, since
that
2019. So almost 4 years.
2019. Yeah,
Almost 4 years.
and tell me more about your network.
So, uh, I'm really big into researching, right? I'm always looking like for ways to improve what I'm doing with the podcast, improve my presence on social media, improve my brand. With the landscape changing so much with technology constantly, I think it's very important to stay up on those things. So I was Google searching different resources for podcasting, and I came across the Female Podcasters Network. This was a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I think, 1.5. I'm not sure. And I joined the group. It was free to join, and I saw a post from the at the time the lady that started it. It was just fresh; it had just started, and she was looking for someone to partner with her. And so I sent her over my story, and we had a call. It was me and her husband, and we decided to become partners. And since then, I've grown it. I'm the head coach. We've had we get clients all the time, and I'm always looking for resources for the ladies in the group. We have over 2,000 members now, and I'm going to be launching our own personal podcast highlighting the members in the group with
Wow.
their success stories around podcasting. So we're getting ready to do that here very shortly.
Is video the future for podcasting?
I think well, yes, video, yes. I think content is key everywhere. Everybody loves content. It's all about finding who your audience is and who's going to connect with you. But people like to look at things, you know.
Mm,
I mean, men are more visual than women, but
yeah.
in today's world, like everything is visual. You know, you cannot, if you're going to have any type of brand, you have to be on social media. You have to. The marketing game has changed. All marketing is around social media. I mean, because that has the captive audience, right? And so you have to utilize those tools and their different the tools, the different algorithms to captivate your audience to get more and more people. You know, I manage another podcast. I produce it and I manage their social media. And so I do like comparisons on his one page to the podcast page that I manage. And I say, you know, your other page that you have someone else working on, they're here's a difference between what I do and what they do. And I showed them like screenshots of the engagement that I get and all the non-followers I reach versus what this other person is doing. And it's just you know, it's very important to utilize and leverage those platforms if you're going to continue to grow.
Very interesting. Very inside. At last I heard there was 3 million podcasts, and the numbers are something like 50% or less than 10 episode and 70%
Yeah.
less than a year,
Yeah.
something like that. So you've got to be in it for a while. I sense people getting frustrated when they don't start making millions after a week. You know, you've got to manage your expectations.
Uh,
So Deanna, on the podcast, you mentioned discipline before and martial arts, and
yeah.
so I lost a lot of weight, right? So I started my business, and uh, I got too heavy. I wasn't paying attention to myself. I was working those long hours, traveling like we talked about, and doctor said to me, if you don't lose the weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. I was
Uh,
pre-hypertensive. I was pre-diabetic.
uh,
So that's all I needed to hear. So I took about a year and a half, and I just worked hard well, I continued to work, by the way, but I just focused on it, and I lost about 130 pounds. And
wow.
to this day, people ask me, they want some quick answer. How did you lose it? How did you? And the answer is discipline.
Yeah.
That's how I lost it.
Yeah.
Focus and discipline. How does discipline play a role in your life now versus through these different stages of trauma in your life?
I think discipline plays a role in everyone's life in a way that, you know, whether they're going to be successful or not, you know. So I mean, I'm not perfect. I have my days, or you know, I might have a week where I'm not as disciplined and I kind of lax on things, and I can feel it, you know. But that's okay, because I know ultimately I will be on back on track. I have to listen to my body. I have to listen to myself. If I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to force myself. And I'm blessed to be able to be that way. But in order to be successful at anything and to see results in any place in your life, I mean, discipline is key. You know, to show up when you don't feel like it is sometimes the best thing that you can do, because you never know what's going to come out of it, whether it's a workout, whether it's a meeting, whether it's you
Mm.
know, cleaning your house. You know, oh my god, after you clean your house, you discipline, finished it, you're like, it completely like rewires your brain to feel like, oh, relief, you know, instead of like feeling all chaotic. I mean, I just think that it plays a very important role in your life no matter what you're doing. I mean, it's necessary.
And as a child, when you were starting those businesses, like, mowing the lawn and helping people with, with events and things like that, and surrounded by that, an abusive family, do you remember what discipline, how did that play a role then?
I mean, I'd like to say yes, because
Yeah.
I had a paper out, had to get up early
Paper route,
to
yeah.
deliver the papers, and you know, I think I was more driven than
Mm,
anything. I think driven and discipline, you know, are kind of similar. You
yeah.
know, if you're driven, you're gonna be disciplined to get the job done. I think discipline is like shows up when, even if you're driven but you're feeling lazy, right? And so the discipline, it comes in when you're like, okay, I'm feeling lazy today, but I'm gonna do it anyways, you know, regardless if you're driven or not, because we do have our lazy days, you know. And I think when you have a certain mindset, that discipline can kick in a lot stronger than others than other days. So, or it plays a key role in everything that you do.
Yeah, certainly. And then with your introduction to martial arts, it's amazing when I talk to people in that area because, like you said, at one particular point, you kind of felt like a badass, and you wanted to go and exercise some of these new skills. But then, as you got deeper in, that kind of self discipline set in, and the reverse happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Very, very. It just seems like a natural order of arts is just self discipline.
I mean, you would like to think so, but I'm sure there's people out there that do not. Especially a guy with
Mm,
full of testosterone might be like, "Ah, I'm a second degree black belt." I mean, we've all seen Karate Kid, right?
sure.
Do you think he was going that other way? No, I don't think so. But I also think that it's growth within, if we're growing on the inside, and that's, what I loved about martial arts was just the art of it, and just like the underlying, the practice, the underlying message with the practices. I mean, we went to Japan with our sensei for a
Hmm.
month. We actually went to the dojo where Shotokan karate started, and we practiced there. And
Wow.
it was pretty intense. And it's just like that whole culture, was is I love the Japanese culture because of how disciplined they are.
Mm,
They're just very, there's not a lot of room for getting emotionally distraught, or mentally out of control. I mean, their lifestyle is pretty regimented, and I personally like my lifestyle to be, I'm very systematic. I like things like the same every day. And so I think once you get into that kind of lifestyle, I mean, martial arts helped me adopt that kind of lifestyle. So, I'm comfortable being in a regimented type of routine, if that makes sense.
you like the consistency.
I love consistency, yes, and stability. Yes. Whereas before, chaos was my friend. Not
Right.
anymore.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It was so chaotic, and now you strive for that, and
Yeah.
not a lot of surprises, and plan for things, and yeah,
Yes,
there's certain
exactly.
harmony in that. I enjoy that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
One of your interviews, you kind of summarized a lot of what you've learned and what you try to pass on, and you said it in kind of three great words. It's embrace the struggle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, embrace the struggle for sure. When things are, and I've said this many times, but when things get hard, I welcome it because it means that there is something big on the other end of the struggle. And I think a lot of people get too caught up in like, woe is me, why me? This is so hard. And
Mm,
I tend to now these days like, what's the lesson? What is this trying to teach me? What greatness is gonna come out of this? And so, every time we look back in our lives, whenever we've gone through some kind of struggle, like yourself, losing all that weight, I'm sure that was
mm,
a struggle. And what you got at the end of it, embracing that process, embracing that journey, is very powerful. And just to kind of, because that's not going to last forever. I mean, we're all like, every day we're getting older and older and older. I mean, we all have a reservation we can't cancel, right? None of us are going to be here forever. And so part of our journey is to embrace these things that teach us and help us grow. And
mm,
that's what I've learned with my struggles. I mean, even today, like, there's things that come up that are, they're like a little frustrating, and I'm, get a little stressed out about, and like, why isn't this move, why aren't we moving the needle here? And we're not
mm.
like, like we always want more and more and more. And so we can get frustrated getting to that next level of whatever that is for us. And so we haven't graduated to that next level because we haven't learned everything we need to where we are. So yeah, it took me a long time to get here because I used to get so mad.
Yeah, because there's certain things out of our control, Deanna, right? And to think that life would be without struggle seems to be arrogant to me. I mean,
Yeah,
who said that everything needs to be good all the time? And I do certain things in my life where there's still a 340-pound guy inside me trying to get out. Every once in a while I feel this. So, I intermittent fast, and sometimes I get
yeah,
hungry, and there's a struggle there. So fight back. That's it.
yeah,
I do cold showers and things like that. And there's certain things you exercise, you do things that are going to be tough, and that's
yeah,
good for us.
yeah, absolutely, very good for us. Yeah.
Deanna Radulescu, what motivates you?
Ooh, what motivates me? That's a good question because, like, I go through periods of time where I'm not motivated, but I think what motivates me is that I want to be the best version of myself that I can be. And even though I've accomplished all these things in life, I there's still more to accomplish, and um, I want to create change.
Hmm. How so?
You know, talk about my podcast, and like I said, it started out as a passion project, but as I've grown over the last couple of years, and I realized how many people that the message, align with them, and they just it spoke to them, and I hear these, thank you so much for what you do. And they tell me their stories of, like, I had of abuse, a drug addiction, this, that, and how they got out of it, and that they loved what my message was about, and it applies to so many people, but the underlying message is the same. We live in a society where we've seen so much division the last couple of years between our beliefs with COVID, our beliefs with politics, and we've seen a lot of riots here in the Chicagoland area. I mean, they lost the
Yeah.
city. The police lost the city here, and a lot of that is just because of some of these labels that we've put on each other and our beliefs, right?
Hmm.
And we're not just looking at, they're not looking at Joey for who Joey is.
Right.
Joey is, he's a more complex guy than just he's this, that, or the other thing, and I think that the message is bigger than myself and what it means to people and what it means to, like, connecting each other, connecting to people around the world. If that makes sense. Did I say that
Mm.
right? I think I had too much caffeine today.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm whether I reach 5 people or a million people with the message, if I can create change in how we look at others and accept them for who they are, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, positive change. We need to see it. And I know that speaking for myself, when my friends do well and I have even the smallest part in it, it's just so rewarding. So to be a part of that positive change is makes life better.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, very fulfilling.
Yeah, and as far as positive feedback on the podcast, I enjoy it too. People say, I'm a really good listener, and then I always say, "I'm sorry, what'd you say?" So, how do you measure success, Deanna?
Ooh, I've had this question before. Success can mean different things to different people. What How I measure success is, um if all the pillars in my life are balanced: family, friends, finances, my love, my house, my health. Like, if I have achieved complete balance in all those areas, and I'm sure, as those things go up and down constantly.
Yeah.
So managing success in all those areas is really, to create that balance is very hard to do, but that's
Oh,
what I aspire to every day. And when I can feel that I have success in all those areas, that's when I feel successful.
yeah, balancing all those things and prioritizing them are so, where am I gonna put my efforts for the next hour, 2
Yeah.
hours, day, week, month, you only have a certain amount of time, and Uh, but in the end, when they all kind of seem to jive, it's so nice.
Yes.
It's so nice. Dana, thank you so much for your time today. I was so excited when you accepted this. I enjoy your podcast. I enjoy the way that you've gone through all this trauma and you just don't keep it to yourself. You tell others about it and tell them how you turned it around
Yeah.
and try to live by an example. That's the remarkable of a wonderful person, a remarkable person, I feel. It's very easy for us to kind of get the trauma, keep it in. And even if we turn it around, not tell anybody, but you decide to do the opposite. You open your book up, like you mentioned before. It's absolutely wonderful. How can we get in touch with you?
I am everywhere. All the things. Labelfreepodcast.com,
That's
Instagram, Label Free Podcast, Facebook, Deanna. I'm still Deanna Kemple, LinkedIn, Deanna Kemple. Use Google search my name, either Deanna Kemple, Deanna Radulescu, or Label Free Podcast. It pops up everywhere. So even Female Podcasters Network. So if you're a female in the podcasting space, it's free to join. The ladies are awesome. A lot of resources there for you to take advantage of. So femalepodcasters.com as well.
Thank you so much, Deanna. You be well. If I'm ever in the Chicagoland area, maybe we'll have a cup of coffee, and take care of yourself.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources, and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.